Greetings. I am Dr. Graciela Caneiro Livingston, Provost at Nebraska Wesleyan University. I want to welcome you to this year's presentation of Spooky Evenings. We here at Nebraska Wesleyan are excited and proud of this event that brings together scholars, artists, authors, and filmmakers to discuss the topic of horror in its various manifestations across the arts and the humanities. Professor Juan Jose Castaño Marquez and Dr. Matthew Jarvis have been working tirelessly to bring you the best scholarship in the field of horror through this unparalleled digital humanities event. I would like to acknowledge the generous support from the Nebraska Arts Council, Humanities Nebraska, and the Nebraska Cultural Endowment that helps make quality programming like Spooky Evenings possible. Again, welcome and enjoy this presentation of Spooky Evenings.
Tonight on Spooky Evenings, an interview with Adam Stovall, followed by a presentation of his film, A Ghost Waits.
Yeah, we're live.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Adam Stovall, director of A Ghost Waits.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I was trying to come up with a pun here for A Ghost Waits, and it wasn't happening. It's something about waiting. Appearing. I don't know. That's true. He is appearing on the show.
And I did wait a little bit, so hey.
You did. I was thinking too, the sequel could be like A Ghost Waits Again or something. A Ghost Still Waits.
We have had so many where like it's got to be a ghost something else, another verb, a ghost turns, a ghost ends, a ghost, whatever. Yeah. Just gotta write them, I guess.
Well, apparently you write very fast, so.
Not usually, I gotta be honest. Usually, like historically, it would take me like 3 years to write something. Because like nobody cares if somebody they've never heard of is writing a spec script in their bedroom. So I just have all the time in the world and I could just kind of play with ideas. But over the last 2 years, I've had to get much better at like knocking stuff out because, we had a very nice premiere and people were interested in what else we were doing. And so it's like, oh, let me finish that for you then. So yeah, getting better at it.
So my goal, because I know you've done quite a few of these, just one or two, is going to be to try to either dig deeper on some things that I've found in my research or to try and ask you things you haven't been asked about.
All right.
So that's my bingo card for tonight with you, to try to be supplemental to things. One thing I noticed that was repeated quite frequently was a discussion of old movies, and I see a MASH poster over your right shoulder. So
yes.
Not that MASH is a particularly old movie, but what old movies in particular sort of like have stuck with you over the years, and what was one of the first ones you really sort of like remember that you keep returning to?
Well, MASH is, it's an obvious answer being that it's right over my shoulder, but it is one of my 3 favorite movies of all time.
The other 2 being?
Do the Right Thing and Gremlins 2.
Okay.
I think something I kind of realized, in the last couple of years is that like Robert Altman in general and MASH specifically like informed what I find cinematic. Um, it's a kind of a curious camera. It's interested in the humanity of everything that's going on around you. It's not the focused story that you're accustomed to, but really like every corner of the screen, is rife with life happening, and his films felt so alive and that they could kind of go wherever he was drawn to. Nashville, Gosford Park, like there's life everywhere. And too many films are, we're going to follow this remarkable person as they do something remarkable. Like, everybody's life has a story, and somebody who can who can really open up their heart and their mind as much as he did, while still being, while still carrying so much formalism, I find endlessly fascinating and inspiring. Jaws, I was very young when my parents showed it to me. I remember they were sitting on the couch behind me. I was sitting on a chair backwards, and it gets to the part where they do the dive and they find the body underwater. And I remember hearing my mom say, "Should we cover his eyes?" Nah, he's fine. I think I was 8. And obviously, like, that's a stone cold classic that everybody
You
goes
grew up
back
in
to.
Kentucky watching Jaws, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
Northern Kentucky.
I grew up on an island watching Jaws, so a little bit different experience.
Yeah. Be like you watching Deliverance, I guess, for me.
Or anybody.
Yeah. But like, it's interesting. Like Jaws, I was just talking to a friend the other day about like, one thing that kind of frustrates me about Hollywood and the film industry is that people seem to like take the wrong lesson a lot of times, and they kind of make these chestnuts. They take an idea like nobody knows anything, and even that they kind of take the wrong lesson from, which is nobody knows anything, and that's why nothing matters. We thought that this would be a huge success. It wasn't. And nobody knows anything. It like excuses executives from mistakes, but it's also a reason to preclude creatives from doing something because they're like, well, that's not what's selling. And it's like, I thought nobody knows anything. And Jaws specifically, people like to harp on, the shark wasn't working. And so that's why he had to shoot around the shark and make this like masterpiece of tension. And it's like, yes, but because he focused on character and story, there was something to point the camera at as opposed instead of the shark. But like, nope, like that leap doesn't get made, or not as often as I think it should. Those two a lot. I think about those two movies. Yeah.
Jaws and MASH. I want to stick on Robert Altman here because that wasn't quite the answer I was expecting. So,
let's do it.
Yeah, because for the longest time, Gosford Park was probably my favorite movie, which nobody could understand why.
Overall, or of his?
Of all. It's not anymore, but it's still probably top 10. No, I Mulholland Drive is my favorite movie.
Okay. Also good. Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, I want to stick on Altman because I mean, you did mention Nashville as well. A movie I've brought up quite a lot on the show is A Secret Honor, that most people haven't seen.
Right.
But very different kind of movie from a Robert Altman, what we would typically expect.
Yeah, he has like kind of, modern day equivalent kind of Soderbergh of like, he really kind of chased his curiosity, and whereas like Soderbergh is kind of obsessed with the form of the medium of filmmaking and how different genres carry different forms. Altman really led with his curiosity, and so like something like Secret Honor doesn't fit with like anything else, but it was just like him and Trudeau being like, hey, what would be Trudeau? That wasn't Trudeau. That was the election film that anyway. But yeah, like something like Secret Honor just like doesn't fit when you look at like The Player and California, Long Goodbye. Long Goodbye, Long Weekend. God damn it. I have too many movies in my head right now. I'm so sorry. But like, yes, you get what I'm saying. I'm going to take a drink of water.
No worries. The other thing, I mean, the dialogue in Altman also sticks out too. Now you haven't done a big ensemble piece yet. We await that, but
That would be lovely.
that's the other thing. The idea of constant sound.
Yeah.
Altman.
One of the scripts that we're trying to make next is very much uses the Altman approach to sound of having several conversations going at once. It's a dinner party, and so you have people over in this part of the room and people over here, and they're all talking about different things. And I've had so many meetings with like sound recordists about how would you approach doing this, like it's not enough just to be like, oh, like an Altman movie. It's like, yeah, but how would you actually do it? Like, can we? Yeah, that's like one of the lessons I learned from making A Ghost Waits was like, don't trust reputation. When you're looking to hire somebody, like make sure they can do it. And like maybe they haven't exactly done it before, but like you need to be able to see evidence that they can get there. Like otherwise somebody can just pick up a basketball and talk to you about how great a player they're going to be. And so you pick them on your team and then they're terrible. So like make them shoot a free throw at least. Come on. Yeah.
Okay. So take them to a restaurant and see what they do.
Yeah. I mean, some of the best, before we made this movie, we spent a year trying to make another one. And I spent 10 months just casting a table read. And the best process I found was I would just send the script. I wouldn't even tell them what character to read. And then you kind of see who they gravitate towards. Because what I kind of started thinking of with in terms of casting is like, you want to find somebody who's 100% right for that character. And like discipline and craft and method or whatever, that can get you to 99. But 100% is in your bones. It means that you have an instinctual understanding of the character. And so I'm gonna give you the script. We're gonna talk about it, and I need to see the character in you. So like I remember talking to a friend. We were sitting at a bar in LA, and she started talking about her brother. And in the course of that specific topic, I saw the character in her and was like, okay, I know exactly how to direct you. Yeah, like this is all collaboration is a fickle and strange alchemy of things, and you just kind of have to give yourself over to it. I found, don't expect that you actually know everything, but leave room for the Holy Ghost, if you will.
In terms of also with Altman, are you purely into American films, or are you into foreign cinema as well?
I really love world cinema. I'm not as well versed in it as I would like to be.
Okay.
I grew up in Erlanger and Florence, Kentucky, for the most part, which are about 15 minutes south of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So I was very much at the mercy of what Video America and Video Village and then Hollywood Video and Blockbuster had. And none of them really carried a lot of international cinema. Sure. So I would write down like, I need to see Persona, but it was like 10 years before I actually did. Yeah.
I was just wondering if like Buñuel was perhaps an influence as well.
Buñuel was one that like, when I finally saw The Exterminating Angel, I was just like, how you ever wonder like how you became the person that you are without certain pieces of art all along? It's just like, I feel like I've been living like I'd seen this movie, but I hadn't. Yeah. A Discreet Charm is great. Obviously Exterminating Angel really landed for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're also, I mean, it's interesting because, the other joke here, Ghost Waits, waiting for Godot, Exterminating Angel, same thing. See, we can work through it somehow.
Weirdly, to go back to the script that we were trying to make before Ghost Waits, I wrote it. I had read Waiting for Godot, and I thought, what would a horror film written by Samuel Beckett look like? And that's what I wrote. So we're really this. I feel like let's save this and then rerun it if I ever actually get to make There's Nothing Outside.
I mean, Endgame's pretty close to a horror film.
True.
Some of his silent plays are too, that are just like a lot of direction. I had to take a whole class on Beckett, so was, yeah.
I've never seen nor read one of his silent plays. Now I'll have to make a
It's
note
just
of
a
that.
series of stage directions.
Just making a note to
unpleasantness.
check those out. Okay.
Just so unpleasant. So unpleasant. I mean, not that spending the whole play in a trash can wouldn't be. But you know, I digress. So in terms of let's push it back into the black and whites, because obviously black and white is a key aesthetic here. MASH, not a black and white. Jaws, not a black and white. So let's go further back.
Okay.
What are we looking at here?
The Innocence.
Okay.
I love The Innocence. Another movie that I hadn't seen when I made a Ghost Wait. So if we're talking about inspiration, like it's not that. I didn't see it until after I moved to New York. They were showing it at Museum of the Moving Image one day, and I went over, and it's just amazing. Deborah Carr's amazing. Gosh, you know, it's weird. Like, well, it's weird how you like being put on the spot in an interview can make your mind completely forget anything you've ever seen. So it's like, hey, you've talked a lot about how much you love the black and white aesthetic. What were your favorite black and white movies? And it's just like, I've never seen a movie. Who are you? What are we talking about? You know, like, well, I mean, Bergman is huge. Actually, that would be the key. When I was in my mid-20s, I was working with a really good friend, and he had an amazing movie collection. And so I would just go over and borrow stuff, and I'd never seen any Bergman films before. So he gave me Wild Strawberries because we were both big Woody Allen fans. And he was like, well, you've seen Deconstructing Harry, so here's what inspired that. And I watched that and was just like, oh, okay, like I need to see more of this. And then I saw Persona. I was like, I need to see everything this person has ever done. Big one. Okay, so in high school, working at Blockbuster Video, one of the international films that we did have was The 400 Blows. So I took that home and watched it, and like I'd had movies really leave a mark before.
You were about to say blow my mind, weren't you?
No, but no, I was going to say, like, I'd seen movies that I really liked. I'd seen movies that were just like, oh, that's a really good movie. Pulp Fiction at that point, like, had changed my life. But 400 Blows, there's something about that film that, like, it ends and you're just like, oh, that's a great piece of cinema. Like, I don't even understand everything that just happened, and I'm going to watch it again right now. But, like, what I do know is that I just saw something truly great and remarkable. And yeah, like, you know, then you see 8.5 and Amarcord and but like you see, you know, I'm a Criterion Collection kid. Like, you start seeing.
I saw the picture of you
classics
in the Criterion closet.
Oh man, that was amazing. I have a friend that works at the Criterion Collection. So they screened a Ghost Waits in their screening room at the Criterion office here in New York. And when I went in to do that, they said, do you want to go into the closet? I said, yeah. They said, do you want
Did
to
they make a
movies?
video of you? Did you get to
No. I'm not that. No, I mean, the goal now is to get to go back and have a video made. But, you know, I mean, I got to just do that as live theater, I guess you could say. You know, I took home 5 movies.
Nice.
It was great. Yeah. And you know, you get to see the restoration lab, all the artwork. The Godzilla box set it was just about to be announced. And so I got to see all the key art before everyone else did. Like, it was really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a massive Criterion collection. I would have grabbed the classic series box 4, which is out of print and costs a small fortune if you're trying to get it.
Well, they don't have everything in the closet. Some of the stuff is even out of print. I've wondered. Because I was like, well, if it's out of print for you, like, can't you just make more?
Yeah, being a collector.
Yeah.
Plus, they're cranking them out a lot faster these days than they used to.
It's weird, right? feels like it happens like every month. There's like 4 to 6 releases.
Yeah,
Like,
but half of them are usually re-releases, so it's like,
true. Gotta.
how many times can I buy Firewalk with Me?
Let's find out. And, what's going to be next after UHD?
The answer is 2. Well, because I got like the big Twin Peaks package, and I hated having this gap, particularly in my number sequence. Yeah, collecting.
Yeah, I had a moment like Arrow started sending me a bunch of stuff after they acquired the movie, and which is lovely, and I hope they never stop. But I got to a point where, and also just being in quarantine, you're bored out of your skull. So I was like, maybe I should organize my movies by distributor. And then I thought, no, that is like the lead of the article when you like die is like obsessive sociopath. Like look at how his movies were organized. This person was not well. I was like, and plus then I would have to know who put out every movie. I'm like, I'm not.
Yeah, that'd be right. I mean, Criterion's easy because they do have the numbers in a row.
Yeah.
Arrow doesn't do that. And thank you to Arrow, because Arrow hooked us up tonight too.
Yeah, no, Arrow's great. No, that is exactly what compelled the thought was, the spine numbers and just, you put them all together and they look really nice. And then like, oh, you do the same with Arrow because they have the little logo and everything. And, but then all these other companies don't give a shit. So, it's like,
we got a lot of friends at Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah.
They use the same distributor actually for the licensing and stuff.
Diabolique.
It's got some weird corporate-y sounding name. I forget what it is. I feel bad saying that because they were really nice to me, but it isn't the best name. It sounds like some sort of like conglomerate. It's
oh, I think I know which one. Yeah.
But it's like 7 or 8 companies that they control the licensing rights to.
Music video distributors,
something like that.
MVD, yeah, Arrow, and yep.
But yeah, I mean, Arrow does some pretty cool mainstream stuff. Vinegar Syndrome is obviously very esoteric, but it seems like all the major new releases, particularly in horror, are coming out through Arrow or Shout Factory, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of them. I was just at Texas Frightmare weekend, which
they sponsor that, don't they?
Yeah, Arrow's one of the sponsors of it, which is how I got to go. And it was really nice to feel like a little famous for a weekend. Like signing autographs and stuff was cool. But getting to talk to the people from Vinegar and Severin, and obviously Diabolique was who ran the Arrow booth, but like getting to see how excited people get when they find the movie from like when they were 12, like or like a release that they've been looking for forever. I heard it a few times that weekend, just like somebody like running across, like, you're not gonna believe what I found it. I was like, oh, this is just the best. There's like, it's so pure.
What's something that would be for you? Is there a movie you quest after? I mean, you've got lots of contacts now.
Yes. So when I was back when I was living in LA, Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner did a string of nights at the Egyptian Theater where they were showing their movies, and they'd get on stage and talk about it. And the very first night was top 10 your show of shows. So it was a feature made of like greatest hits of the sketch show that they both worked on with I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, Sid Caesar. And the second movie was Enter Laughing, which was Carl Reiner's first film, which he made before The Jerk. And the LA subway system stops running at a certain time, and I wasn't driving at the time, so I had to leave. So I'm watching this movie and I'm just loving it. Elaine May is in it. It's just light and fun. And I never heard of this thing before, so I had no idea what to expect. And I was really enjoying it, and I had to run. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to get home and immediately, order the DVD. And I get back, and it has never been released on home video. So years of just like, I gotta see Enter Laughing at some point. Like I don't know when, like, will I ever get to see the end of this movie? And then a couple years ago, obviously before COVID, Film Forum down in Manhattan did an Elaine May retrospective, and they showed it, and I got to see it, and I was by far the youngest person in the theater by about 20 years probably, and I was cackling. I fell out of my chair laughing at this kind of the ending set piece. And I mean, like, people are looking over just like, because they've all seen this movie like so many times, they're revisiting something from their youth, and I was just already euphoric that this like quest to see this movie was being realized, and then the ending's so much fun that I just lost it. Afterwards, somebody came over and just like, oh my god, like you really enjoy that movie. It's just like, yeah.
I'm surprised you don't have it in like cans and 35 millimeter.
I mean, I live in New York. I don't have room for that. I barely have room for what I have.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's that's one that like there's also a movie called House of God that my dad really loves and is not available. So I've started looking into like, how do I find out who has rights to certain movies? Because I do have access to a distributor now, a couple actually. So like, let's see if I can put something together.
It can be a challenge. Particularly finding out who controls the license can be a real challenge. Sometimes you have to go all the way to the Library of Congress and find out, which is even more of a pain.
I've never been. It sounds like it would be.
Well, just trying to get them to return an email can be a pain.
Yeah.
So you've alluded to you started out in Glasgow. Was the first one at Fright Fest, and then the American premiere at Scream Fest. All these fests, you got your trophies behind you, the beautiful skull trophies,
designed by Stan Winston.
Yeah, they're pretty snappy, I gotta say.
Yeah, pretty. I'm very proud of that. Had no idea it was going to happen at all. Yeah.
You don't do the Kate Winslet thing and put them in the bathroom so people can pose with them.
No, honestly, and like this is, I probably shouldn't admit this, but like some days it's nice just to look over and be like, okay, so like I've done this before, I can do it again. Because you kind of hit a wall in terms of writing or whatever, and you're just like, I'm never, it's like there are no good ideas left. And then like we're like, all right, like I just got to keep trucking through these walls because it's like this happened. So like, who knows what else?
So it's like the old Saturday Night Live of you're good enough, you're smart enough.
Yeah, that's that hits home a little bit. Yes. So I do love that. Like you're so like we're not going to talk about the questions you've been asked to the point that like I hope everyone understands that like I made a movie with my friend McLeod Andrews called Ghost Waits, and yeah, it was just like, oh, we're not talking about that at all. This is fantastic. But like, is anyone watching this?
You said like, you watched 2 interviews with me.
I know.
Why would I want to repeat material that's on in those other places?
I respect it. When I was a film journalist, like it was a thing that I really took a lot of pride in. Was I'm not going to ask about like, oh, what was it like to work with so and so? It's like I don't care. Like until I'm working with them, I really don't care what it's like. But I would get to ask questions like, what was the seed of the idea? How do you know when you're done? Like how does it ever feel finished, or do you just have to let go of it? Like that kind of stuff that I wasn't really seeing anywhere else. And I'm a little nerd, so that's the stuff that I care about.
Yeah. I mean, we're pretty nerdy over here. So in terms of the horror festival circuit, do you have any wild anecdotes you could share with us?
I mean, I've done most of it from like this room, so not really. I mean, wild. Glasgow overall felt like a wild experience. It's not like it's not going to make any tell-alls. Peter Biskind isn't going to write about it, but like when you when you grow up in a place like Northern Kentucky that's just like so far removed from the film industry and you don't know anybody who's ever made one. My dad had like worked on a couple sets because he was a projectionist through college. And so like that union, he would get on like some commercial shoots or whatever, but like that's kind of the closest I really had. So, you know, it's just like blind faith and like kind of feeling like I painted myself into a corner of like, well, I don't really know what else to do, and I've always wanted to make a movie, so let's just see if I can, and you know, however that works out, like that tells us what the next step is. So to make this and to make it for very little money, but to make it with my best friend and to just work relentlessly. You know, we spent about 5 years from like principal photography to like now, getting it to a place where we were happy with it, getting out into the world. So we had gotten into a point where it's like, all right, this is pretty good. Like this probably works. Let's submit it to some festivals. And we took some moonshots on that Sundance, South by, all that stuff. And you know, we were getting no's. I got very good at the rejection emails. I'm pretty sure I could recite them by memory still. And then one day, I had just gotten out of a movie. And I was in the bathroom and I turned my phone on and there's an email from the Fright Fest guys saying, we just watched your movie. It's beautiful and brilliant and blah, 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 you're in. And Glasgow Film Fest paid for me. They covered my trip. They covered my hotel. I got my passport in order to go. And I get over there and I'm thoroughly overwhelmed and I'm completely sleep deprived. And I see Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson walk into the room where this filmmaker happy hour is happening. And I'm a massive fan of theirs. So I just walk over like, hi, like, I don't mean to bother you. My name's Adam Stovall. I also have a movie in the festival. I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. I just wanted to say hi. And Aaron Moorhead says, yeah, Adam, we know who you are. And I was like, don't know what to do with that. I'm just going to chuck that away. And we actually ended up spending like the rest of the evening talking until they all decided to go to some other pub. And I was like, I really need to sleep. I'm losing everything. But that, starting from that and then just going through the experience of showing the film and being really welcomed into this community, that felt wild. Like when you don't expect that to happen. And, you know, I'm 43 years old. Most people make their first movie at a much younger age. You know, you get to a certain point where you think like, maybe this will never happen and it'll probably never happen. This is not going to happen. And then you just kind of like force your way through the door. You kind of don't, or at least I didn't expect to be welcomed in. You know, you feel like I kicked my way into the door. They're going to turn around and be like, you should go. Don't kick our door. And they were just like, hey, you're in the club now. Welcome. And I mean, that was just overwhelming and beautiful and wild. I had a couple panic attacks. I made some friends. It was great.
It's like you relived the college experience in a weekend.
Yeah. It did kind of feel like that, you know. And then like with Screamfest, they were so dedicated to having an in-person festival last year that it was a drive-in.
Yep.
So I got to see Halloween and then A Ghost Waits at a drive-in, which is just like, you know, it sucks about the global pandemic and all, but when else am I going to get to do this? This is pretty cool. And then so Fright Fest doesn't do its own awards, but Total Film Magazine does awards for them. And we had won Best Actor, Director, and Picture at Fright Fest in August. And then, so Screamfest was October. And you know, because they had worked so hard to have an in-person event, you lose a lot of the stuff that festivals normally have, primarily networking. You're not going to meet everybody because you can't safely, you know, there's very good reasons not to. And so, you know, I was out there and, you know, it's just like, all right, well, I hope this was, you know, I'm glad I got to see my movie on a drive-in. I got to see my friend, like, this is really cool. I met some really wonderful people. This is worth it. And then we get to the final night of the festival and they're showing this Icelandic vampire film called Thirst, and then they show a bunch of short films, and then it's awards night. And I thought, I feel like McLeod has a decent chance at Best Actor. And I thought, like, if I get to be here and cheer for my best friend winning an award for the movie we made together, like 1,000%, everything was worth it. Like, I'm going to be so happy and so fortunate. And they get through all the short film awards and they say, okay, on to feature Best Actor, McLeod Andrews, A Ghost Waits. And I'm like screaming before I'm out of the car. I'm just like grabbing my mask, just like, yeah, I get my mask on. And I'm just like, and I'm parked like right next door. They're giving the awards out, and McLeod's kind of in the back. So it takes him a minute to get up there. And the whole time I'm just hooting and hollering like, yeah, buddy, woo. And he gets up and gives a speech and comes over, and we're like doing a little dance together, and we're having such a good time that we miss the first part of what they say, and it's blah, 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 A Ghost Waits, and like, huh? And McLeod's like, go, we won something, go. So I walk over and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry, I missed the first part of I missed the first part of what you said. What is this for? And they said Best Picture. And I said, holy shit. And that's how my first acceptance speech began. I was just like, McLeod, get up here. We won Best Picture. And so just stumbled through, like, I can't believe this has started in Florence, Kentucky. Like, what is happening? I looked out and like, it's just a bunch of cars. I was like, you always dream about winning an award in the last scene of Holy Motors. And got done with that and like walked away, just like, I can't believe that just happened. And then it's, Best Actress, so-and-so can't be here, we accept. Cinematography, so-and-so can't be here, we accept. And it's like, okay, so they gave out the awards for people that are here. They go through all these others and they say, which brings us to the last award of the night, Best Director, Adam Stovall, A Ghost Waits. And I'm like, what? And I just hear from behind me, somebody in a car go, this is bullshit, it's rigged. I was like, that feels good. That's what, yeah, thank you. Like, that makes this real. And like went up. It was just like, I don't have anything else to say. I said it all last time. Like, thank you all very much. And yeah, like, had no expectations whatsoever, which is kind of in the experience with the movie. Like, because it's so small and we made it for such a small amount of money, like, we didn't have grand expectations for what would happen. So this is all kind of felt like house money. Like, where it's like, all right, like, I can't believe this thing's out in the world and people are seeing it. Like, much less we got like a really great distributor and we won the awards and stuff. It's just like, yep. If this isn't nice, what is? I can't tell if that's wild or not.
A bit wild. Winning an award, not knowing what you won it for at the time where you have to give an acceptance speech is pretty wild. That's very dreamy.
It feels on brand.
It is interesting. I mean, the phrase that you see popping up with the budget for the film, of course, is micro budget, which I guess, like, in juxtaposition for what it costs to make a mainstream film these days, anything would be a micro budget.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like a reasonably expensive house would be a micro budget for.
Yeah, for our budget, you could probably get like a decent house in like Dayton, Ohio. Well, actually, no. You could get a house that is standing, but I would not call it decent.
No, it is an interesting phrase, and I mean, it is a thing about horror, though. In particular, though, like, I mean, obviously, Paranormal Activity is the legendary $37,000 budget and gross $250 million.
Yeah.
Which I actually lived not too far from that house when I was in grad school at one point. So that's my weird connection to that.
Well, and like, the fun thing about Paranormal Activity, as is the case with so many of these micro budget, success stories. Yeah, they shot it originally for very little money, and then Spielberg saw it and wrote them a check to redo the ending. So there's more to it's like a
the publicity budget's where it all was, right?
Oh my god, yeah, that.
I mean, and they actually created the concept of college viral campaigning for the distribution of that film.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, hats off to the people that ran that campaign. Like, they created a language, and I do like the movie. I actually like at least the first two. The third has some really good moments. It does kind of lose me as it goes, but
A new one coming out.
yeah, I might miss it.
Ooh,
I haven't seen the last couple.
an opinion. Wow, somebody in the industry giving me an opinion. I just
Well, it's also just like I'm so behind,
okay.
like I mean, I saw Dune opening day, I saw French Dispatch, I saw like I've seen a couple movies lately, but I feel whoa so behind on things. Especially like when we were in the process of editing the movie, at my peak, like when I was at Creative Screenwriting Magazine, I was seeing about 300 movies a year because I was covering festivals, which
Yeah.
that's just too many. Like at that point, you start hating movies and you're like, I want to burn the 3X structure to the ground. And then it kind of course corrected to where I'm like, yeah, 150, 200 maybe sometimes, but like 150 a year is strong. And then while I was making the movie and editing the movie, it was down to like 30 because I was just constantly watching my own. Like, all right, we just gotta. Let's okay. What's wrong with this cut now? All right, let's do it again. So I'm finally like, I'll hit 150 this year again. It feels nice to be getting back to it, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the last few paranormal activities. No,
It's fine. I've said some massively controversial things on this show, uh, particularly for somebody who does horror stuff.
yeah.
But to that point too, I guess the elephant in the room is you're not actually a big horror guy. You're not. You're kind of self-described as a fraidy cat.
I definitely did not grow up a horror kid like so many others. Like yeah, I saw Jaws when I was 8, but like that's it. Like I saw the Freddy movies, but I was a comedy nerd and Freddy was funny. That's why I watched the Freddy movies.
Sure.
Until
Well, I guess starting with the third one, Freddy becomes funny.
Right. But yeah, like I didn't grow up with that. Although I do remember in like middle school, I had a little TV in my room in middle school, and I would watch like Friday nights. I would watch Monsters, and then there was like Nightmare Cafe for a while. There was the Friday the 13th series for a while. There was Tales from the Dark Side. I would watch that, but I didn't
Have you
really
watched
watch
all of that? The Friday the 13th series?
I mean, if I have, not in decades.
Well, all right,
I couldn't tell you anything about it.
nobody mentions this show, and since you did, I want to pause on it because
yes, okay.
I love that show for one. It has nothing to do with Jason Voorhees or Crystal Lake. If you haven't seen it, it's these two kids who inherit an antique shop with a bunch of haunted objects.
Yes.
Because their uncle or someone dies. The series ends and nobody knew it was going to end, so it just ends. There is no resolution, there is no denouement, nothing. It just ended one day. And so I give that to you, Adam Stowe. Go finish it for me.
I mean, it's weird now that I think about it that I really didn't watch a lot of horror movies, but I think that's largely because my parents weren't into horror. And so like I'm seeing what they're bringing home. And like that had weird moments, like seeing reds and hair when I was very young. But yeah,
so
they
you
just
processed all of reds when you were
right. Yeah, I got every bit of the nuance.
And then you got in trouble at school for humming the sodomy song and all kinds of problems.
And like it's funny because my mom now, like we went in 2018, we saw the Halloween kind of relaunch or whatever you want to call it. Sure. And afterwards she was talking about how she was pregnant with me and she had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on, and she woke up and the Halloween trailer was playing, and the shot of Michael at the top of the stairs scared her so much she went into labor. So like Michael Myers scared my mom into the process of birthing me. Never told me this story until 2018. I was like, come on. But yeah,
how you
like,
need to be introduced from now on, man.
I know. Like,
you were birthed by Michael Myers.
I'm part of the legacy.
Right.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I grew up a comedy kid. I grew up watching like Night Court and The Jerk and just like everything and stand-up comedy.
Night Court.
Has it?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no.
with John Larroquette.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
I remember that one specifically because like when the finale aired, I cried because I felt like my friends were leaving me. Like for whatever reason, Night Court meant a lot to me. Again, as a child, and so yeah, like and stand-up comedy. I would watch just relentlessly watch as much stand-up comedy as I could. I started doing theater, and I remember like the summer before my senior year of high school. I was visiting a relative and they worked at a college. And so I just went and like watched all this Robin Williams footage of stand-ups and everything and watched how he modulated his energy. Because that was kind of my thing as a performer was like I just had lots and lots of energy and would like do whatever was needed. And I'd always been a Robin Williams fan, but being able to study how he performed was like, okay, this is making sense. Like you can see him like catching his breath here, even though it doesn't look like he is. He really had a strong rhythm to things, and that was just, yeah, that was fascinating. But yeah, it wasn't until my 30s that, and in my 20s, I oversaw a comedy group that was like sketch / stand up. We did that for a little while. I got to perform comedy backed by the Wailers, Bob Marley's old band, one time, which is just the most bizarre thing. It's a really good entry for Two Truths and a Lie, even though everybody, because obviously it's like, well, that's. But in my 30s, my sister was married to a fella, and he was a big horror kid. And so when I would visit, he's like, it's stupid that you've never seen these movies. So he started showing me a lot of horror when I would visit. And I remember like watching Sisters, and I was just like, oh, there's a lot more to this genre than I thought. And that opened up the gates. And now I love horror. And I don't consider myself a fraidy cat. I think I've got a pretty good stomach. I love Lars von Trier. So like
that's an interesting statement.
Yeah, like I love his movies. Like I covered Antichrist for the magazine, and there's no more jaded room to watch a movie in than a press screening. And the press screening of Antichrist, people were like screaming and like swearing at the screen and like running out. And I remember like I had like I had pain. I had actual pain. And I just thought, like, you're doing this to me with sound and image. Like, you're an amazing director. Is that noise annoying? Are you picking like a beeping noise?
I can hear it. I don't know what it is.
I had to keep my window cracked open because the radiator is very effective. But so okay, it's gone now. Great. Yeah.
Funny you were talking about sound, and then a weird sound popped in.
Maybe this is a simulation.
Yeah. My students like Antichrist for some bizarre reason.
It's a very good movie.
Yeah, it's just not what I would have thought students would have been into.
Kids these days, you never know.
I know. Yeah, then I showed like Danton, and students were like, "Oh, you should have warned us about the violence." I'm like, "Of what? A guillotine? It's a movie about the French Revolution. What did you think was going to happen?"
Yeah. That is a pretty safe expectation, yeah.
I mean, was there anything else you thought was going to happen? Yeah.
Maybe they thought it would be Les Miserables. They're like, when do they start singing?
Yeah, wrong French Revolution. So, okay. I'm hung up on the idea of somebody just verbalized, "I love Lars von Trier."
I got to interview him. That's why I was seeing Antichrist. I interviewed him for that, and we actually, he's obviously like he's struggling with some stuff, but like we had a lovely conversation just about like mental health and the creative process. Because Antichrist was such a huge departure for him in how he typically writes a movie, because he was dealing with a profound depression. A very severe depression at the time, to the point that, he was saying like directing is so social and writing is so antisocial that he would write until he couldn't. And this is why he had a co-writer on the movie. He would hand that to his co-writer and go like work on directing stuff until he had like recharged the battery, and then come back and write until he couldn't and hand it up. Like it was a very odd process for him. Yeah, I think he's fascinating, and I think most of his movies are fascinating, and he's a great director. I remember watching The House That Jack Built, and there's just, I was like, this is probably his masterpiece, because there's parts in it that are like almost unwatchable, and then other parts that are just like the greatest thing you've ever seen. It's like, yep, this is all of it. This is him. I've been told I do not need to see The Idiots. That's like one of the only ones. It might be the only one that I haven't seen, and I've been told I do not need to see it.
Okay.
So I don't know.
There's so many movies out there to see.
Yeah, I know, but like you were saying about collecting, like if you have like a completist brain at all, you're just like,
Yeah.
but there's one that I haven't. Like there's one missing. I'm like, yeah, just let it be missing. All right. That's not going to keep me up at night at all. Thanks.
It's an interesting mix of people that you're into, though. I will say you're into Bergman, you're into Truffaut, you're into Altman, you're into Lars von Trier. Like that's a weird stew, man.
Yeah, man. Well, don't leave out Joe Dante.
Okay.
I love Joe Dante.
You hadn't mentioned him yet, so
I said Gremlins too.
Oh, that's right. That's true.
No, like, yeah. I mean, I guess a friend and I used to play a game of like, so you have the top 5, what's your desert island top 5, and we kind of one day we made like, if you can take 5 filmographies with you, who do you take?
Okay.
And
so who do you take?
I don't know that I've ever actually been able to fill out all 5. Like Coen brothers, Dante, Altman. And like, that's when it starts getting iffy, because it's like, well, probably Mike Nichols, but like, I don't like, do I put him in before I put in like, I mean, Spielberg would obviously be amazing, and it's a huge body of work. Spike Lee, his highs are so high, but his lows are so low. And yeah, like it's one of those, like, it's a question that I asked that I haven't even answered fully yet. But the 3, like I always like the Coen brothers, Bergman, or the 4, I guess, Altman and Dante. Like I feel like that those would definitely be on there, just because like you get a pretty decent array of films. And then Joe Dante, just like the sheer joy that man takes in filmmaking. Like Gremlins 2 is my second favorite movie of all time, because he didn't want to make it.
Right.
And like at all, he aggressively did not want to make it, and they just couldn't find anybody else. They kept talking to other directors, and nobody, like whatever they were wanting to hear, nobody ever said it. And so they were just like, well, Joe did it before, he can do it again. And he just kept asking for more and more stuff that he knew they wouldn't say yes to, and they kept saying yes. So it's this like masterwork that is angry at its own existence, but like also just like it's getting away with it, the movie. Like he got to make his live action Looney Tunes cartoon, and then went on to make a Looney Tunes movie. But like it's so wonderful. I won't say perfect, because no movie is perfect, but like it's so wonderful, and it can only be made by one person. Another game that friend and I would play is like mixing and matching filmmakers and film. So it's like Michael Bay's Do the Right Thing, like who can come up with the worst idea, and you can put almost anyone's name next to Gremlins 2, and it's like a completely different thing. So yeah,
we have exceedingly different lists.
I'd imagine. Oh, John Carpenter, he would probably go up. He'd probably be on there. But yeah, I'd imagine so. Who's on your list? Who are you taking?
David Lynch. That shouldn't be a surprise.
Nope.
Billy Wilder.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I'm tempted to say Hitchcock, just because it is a huge body of work with a lot of different things within it. Roger Corman.
Nice.
Because I enjoy some camp, and Milos Forman.
Ooh, that's a solid choice. I really wish I loved David Lynch. I feel like I should. And there are movies of his, like Mulholland Drive is amazing. But like I still haven't gotten through Eraserhead. And
so the first one.
Yeah. And like I have so many friends who love him, and I feel like I should, but there's just something that like doesn't sit with me the way it does with others. I mean, like I saw Lost Highway, which like then you see Mulholland Drive and you're just like, yep. Like I get what this is. Yeah, I don't know. I keep going back to him just to see if like
Well,
something
it's
in
funny
me
because
has unlocked
you
yet.
mentioned Mel Brooks, and of course Mel Brooks very much enjoyed Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Which it's a cognitive disconnect for me imagining Mel Brooks watching Eraserhead.
Yeah. It's the fun thing though, is like filmmakers are generally people who love film. So, you know, yeah, like Alfred Hitchcock probably sat and watched Blazing Saddles, you know. I don't know. I mean, I'm totally speculating there. I don't know.
He seemed pretty joyless as a person. I'm thinking about the Academy Awards when Jimmy Stewart is like praising him, and he's just in his very Alfred Hitchcock way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just wants to be home drinking some tea, not being bothered.
Tea. Chugging a bottle of wine. Yeah. All right, so
I seem to have confounded you. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just trying to make a transition out of that.
Okay.
It's just not going to happen. So I'll make commentary how there's lack of transition in a Johnny Carson.
It's like the state thing where it's like the state waves goodbye to the old sketch and welcomes the new with open arms.
Yeah, it's a Johnny Carson meets Monty Python transition here. That would be another good choice. Terry Gilliam would be another good choice for.
Yes.
There's just not that many.
Yeah, sadly.
It's like saying you want all of Daniel Day-Lewis's movies. Like, okay, you have 12 movies.
I heard when my dad and I went to see the new Bond movie, we're sitting in this IMAX theater, so it's massive, and there's like 6 people total. But the guys behind, a couple rows behind us, the Licorice Pizza, you said Daniel Day-Lewis, it made me think of Paul Thomas Anderson. The Licorice Pizza trailer plays, and it ends, and like the little bit of silence between trailers, guy behind us says, well, that looks like it'll be good for people who like that kind of thing. It's just like, that is the most evergreen piece of film criticism I've heard. Like, well, I'm glad people who like that will have it. All right.
So, let's talk about PT for a second. I wasn't familiar with that game until I read interviews that you have given. It sounded like another game that I was familiar with, which was Layers of Fear.
Have not heard of that.
That one is about an artist who you are a first person. You're playing an artist, and you're going through the house trying to solve what has happened in your house, and your family has gone missing.
All right. I will have to look into this.
Yeah, but it had a similar vibe to it. Actually, this Layers of Fear is the first jump scare that actually startled me probably in 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're playing with your PS4 right now, all of a sudden the thing is and something flies in your face, and I had like all the lights out, and I threw the controller and the.
Like I said, I don't consider myself too much of a Freddy cat, but like playing PT, which for the viewers who don't know is a first-person haunted house puzzle game that Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro designed as a kind of teaser game. They were working on a Silent Hill game together that was going to be amazing, and this game was like, if you solved this game, and they didn't tell anybody this, like you had no idea what was coming, but if you solved it, it was a trailer for the Silent Hill game. People lost their minds. But it is just like you wake up on a bare mattress in a room with a flickering light, and you walk out the door, and it's an L-shaped hallway. And you just keep walking through this L-shaped hallway, and every time through, you have to do something different. And it could be something as small as listen to the radio, look at a picture, whatever. But like, it is the creepiest game because Guillermo del Toro is so good at atmosphere. And like I said, I don't think I'm scared of crap, but like playing this, because you have to like walk through, you have to make the choice to keep moving. it totally implicates you in the horror of it. And I was terrified. Yeah.
So what makes something good horror to you?
That's a good question. I think
We got one.
no, this has been amazing. I like you said, like these are all like new. Like I don't, yeah, this has been really. I don't think we've really covered any familiar ground. It's been amazing. Good horror. Charlie Kaufman said it really well when he and Spike Jonze were contracted to make what would become Synecdoche, New York. They met with Sony, and Sony said, "We want to make a horror movie with you guys. We don't care what it's about. It's just you guys make it." And Spike went off to make Where the Wild Things Are, but Charlie went home and thought, "Well, what scares me?" And he thought, "Well, the relentless progression of time. That's what scares me." Like I think a horror movie is what scares you, and the more personal you can make it. Like I just watched Lake Mungo the other night, and I keep seeing people say it was the scariest movie they've ever seen. It kept them up all night. Like it kept me up all night, but that's just because I became obsessed with it. I think I tweeted like it's the Dear Zachary of horror movies. Like I was an emotional wreck by the time it was over. But like what's most exciting to me about horror is the thing that is so often not done, which is characters. Like, it is exploring your own fear. I'm not afraid of a guy with a knife. I'm not afraid of a guy with a chainsaw. I'm not afraid of, like I can run. I can lock a door. I can, it's one of the jokes.
You think these things.
It's one of the jokes in the movie of just like, no, I'm not going to go up there. Like, I'm good. But like you get older and, your body stops working. I mean, there's a reason Cronenberg's films are so effective. Like you can't outrun your own mortality. So like, and I get that that's the point. Like, Jason is inevitability, but like, yeah, the idea of it being a person doesn't really get me much. But like The Thing, where it could be anything, and and it erodes trust, which is what society is largely built upon. The Thing is what would undo all of society if it got out. Like that to me is terrifying. Don't Look Now. One of the things I found most interesting, like in the course of making A Ghost Waits, I started thinking a lot about ghosts, and something I realized is that like ghosts are the only monster that you hope to see, because ghosts are born out of our desire to have more time with a loved one that has died, and you're so desperate to see the spirit that you want to see that you're willing to risk letting in malevolent spirits. It's our inability to let go of things. Like that's what's most terrifying, is either the parts of ourselves that are our own undoing, or the idea that like I'm not actually a person. And I don't know if that comes from growing up kind of othered by being a sensitive little boy in the South and the Midwest in the 80s and 90s, when that was not a thing to be. But like, when you kind of grow up being told that you're wrong just for being who you are, and that you need to make fundamental changes within yourself in order to be a person. At a young enough age, what that starts telling you is that you're not a person. Your parent might tell you that you're so close to good enough in a certain area, and that's them trying to motivate you to like make a real effort and get to that point. But what you hear is you're not good enough. And so, yeah, like to me, the most effective horror, so like The Innocence or something like that, is, you're wrong and you're not a person, and you're, and you're unwelcome. Or, there's no point in, you can't trust your own ability to perceive, like that is what we have in our lives. Like, especially as an artist, your job is to tell a story about how you see the world, because literally no one else can do that. If you can't even trust how you perceive the world, like what chance do you have? That's terrifying to me.
I think, in terms of A Ghost Waits, the double feature for me is A Ghost Waits, and in terms of contemporary films, and anything for Jackson, I think would be.
I've heard of this. I haven't seen it.
Are you a fan of Supernatural at all?
Yeah.
Okay, the guy who plays Death is one of the leads in the film.
Oh, okay.
Which I just love him as Death in Supernatural with all his junk food. But yeah, you should definitely check it out, because it's similar themes you're interested in. You take your route. I mean, it's sort of a logical route for you when in talking to you tonight. You take it into comedy and things. This is if you didn't. This is if you took the more sort of like Lars von Trier, I'm going to meditate on my grief and depression in relationship to this, and I'll sell my soul as part of that. And so I think there's like a yin and yang to these two films that would make them a good pairing together. I mean, the other one is a film I talk about a lot, which would be an older film, which would be Changeling.
Oh, yes. With George C. Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful film.
Yes.
Which I also hadn't seen until after I made this.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, make a movie.
I would not have thought that.
So much stuff.
I would not have thought that.
No.
That's interesting, because I mean, there's elements that
we're all eating from the same trough. Like we all kind of you stretch the window wide enough, like you're all looking at the same insecurities and doubts and fears. Over the course of, I mean, that was 1980. So, over the course of 40 years, people are going to see some of the same stuff. They're going to be ensnared by the same flowers. So
he played like a variation of that character over and over in horror movies too. Exorcist 3, it's very similar, actually.
Oh, I have not seen Exorcist 3. I've actually only seen the first Exorcist.
Skip the second one and watch the third one.
Isn't the second one the one with the the jump scare that everybody talks about?
That's
really
the third
long.
one.
That's the third one. Okay.
It's actually a really great crafted piece of film. That jump scare. But it's a good movie. The second one, Richard Burton is in it with Linda Blair, and he's like this parapsychologist. And
no,
that's a hard pass.
Okay.
But
the Haunting. That's one that I should have mentioned before. The original The Haunting was amazing. Did you ever see The Old Dark House?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
It's on my shelf.
Okay. I also hadn't seen that until the re-release happened a couple years ago. But no, it's weird. I wasn't thinking about other movies when we made A Ghost Waits. Just because, why? I have a rule that you should never remind the audience they could be watching a better movie. But why make something that's already been made? Because it's already been made, and it's a lot easier to just pop popcorn and watch it than to try to write a whole thing. I realize that's the antithesis of the marketplace, but here we are. So when we were doing this, it was also kind of a desperate act. I was in a really bad place, mental health wise. And so making this was just I just need to see, I don't have a plan B. I need to see if I do this, because otherwise I'm really not sure what my place in this world, and perhaps I should give it up. And so once you kind of frame it that way for yourself, it really became saying something that I didn't feel like anybody else was saying. Because if somebody else was saying it, then I could be watching that, and that would make me feel less alone. So if I need this, chances are somebody else needs this too. But yeah, so it was just this very pure thing. And I remember Michael Potter, the DP, asking at one point, for film for visual references. Like, what's this movie gonna look like? And I was like, scenes from a marriage. Like, like, have you seen Scenes from a Marriage? I like that. And we took like, it was like Ingmar Bergman and Mr. Robot were like two things that we always had in mind of like framing and composition. It's very strange mix, and filmmaking is weird, kids. I don't know. There's no answers. But you know, because we weren't trying to ape anything else, because we weren't trying to like, oh, let's reference this, you know, we were still kind of you're still speaking a cinematic language and you're still telling a story. And so, you know, you do your thing, you say what you want to say, and you have to say it using a camera and sound and light and everything. And then you put it out and people are like, oh, it's like this. And you're like, I had no idea any of this shit existed. So I'm getting like Oliver Onions to read The Beckoning Fair one, and I'm getting you know, The Changeling and all this stuff, just like, you know, in The Old Dark House, a friend took me to, and I was just like, I did not realize, like, you know, I just didn't, you know, it's such an elastic genre, you know,
Well,
that
it makes
even
sense,
though I
right?
thought
Analytically, it makes perfect sense, right? You
Yeah.
were suffering with depression. You made a ghost story. Ghosts are about trauma and memory.
yeah,
I mean,
You know-
not to get too fine of a point on it for you, but
this is the other part about making a really personal movie, is that like the stuff becomes therapy, where you're just like, yes. No, a friend of mine at the time, like he he didn't read the script. He did, like, we would get lunch every week, except for when we were shooting, but like he and I would get lunch every Tuesday. And so he knew about stuff that was happening, but he knew nothing about the actual movie. And so then, you know, in November 2018, we did our first Friends and Family, and he and his wife came and watched it. And the following Tuesday, we met up for lunch, and he said, yeah, like, you were in love with you know, you were in a bad relationship and you made a movie about loving an unavailable woman. And I was just like, well, that seems a bit reductivist, but you're not wrong. Yeah, I was in a really bad relationship at the time, but yeah, you know, it is therapy. If at this level, it's therapy. I mean, I don't want to. I'm sure Marvel movies are very personal for some people. I'm sure if you spend 3 years of your life, 2 years of your life making a movie, it feels very personal. But I don't know that it's the same thing.
well, I think those are more for the fans. They're more personal than they are for the you know.
I mean,
you're more almost like an auteur in all of this, right? You wrote it, you directed it, you.
Yeah, but I feel like Taika is working through some feelings about colonialism in Ragnarok.
Okay.
You know, like, there's.
But he's also constricted pretty hard in the way you are not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the upside of making a movie for less than the cost of a base level Mercedes, is that you have a lot of freedom. You can do pretty much whatever you want. You add a comma to this movie's budget, there's no way you end it the way we ended our movie. You know, like, that a producer's going to shut that down pretty fast.
Yeah, and so you see, you buy your freedoms in different ways, right?
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
That's actually it goes back to MASH. When Altman got the gig making MASH, they were also making Patton and Tora Tora Tora. So they had like these 3 war movies. MASH was by far the smallest budget. And he told them, he said, as long as we stay, you know, because people were, you know, they're reading a script and they're just like, do you actually think they're going to let you make this? And he said, as long as we stay on budget and on schedule, they will never visit us. We will have no one looking in, because there's so much more money and so much more stuff with Patton and Tora Tora Tora. It's like, we're going to get away with this as long as we never have to ask for another dime. And they did.
Fair enough. I was watching the movies that made us. I was watching the Forrest Gump episode, and just like how many times the studio sent people out to set to try to shut stuff down.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah.
I haven't
Particularly
watched
the
any of
running
those.
scene. They wanted to get rid of the running scene. Like that was
Huh.
the producer like covertly had it shot with like a phantom crew and stuff, and then the studio found out halfway through and was furious. It was like this legendary scene in the movie.
Right. That's like Orson Welles when he made
Oh yeah,
Touch of Evil. Um, you know, they're already they're starting and they're already behind schedule. And they're freaking out and they're flying people to set, just like what the hell is happening? And then they finally nail that opener, that long tracking shot of an opening, and okay, cut, print, and they're like immediately back on schedule. You know, sometimes it's just, you just got to wrap your head around like not everybody works the exact same way. And to be fair, like it is on us to try to articulate how we're going to work, and let them know that like, yeah, we're going to need to do some rehearsal. We're going to need to, we're going to spend some days laying down track and doing all this stuff. But like, once we get it, we're going to be fine. But all the stories I've heard of Orson, he had so much going that it was just like trying to get him to answer a question was like, oh man.
Did you watch Mank last year?
Yes.
I mean that sort of tells you everything, really.
Yeah.
And I love that they included the actual Oscar acceptance speech at the end of that.
That was that was fascinating. That was such a weird movie for like just in terms of the Fincherness of it all. It's
also
it's
black
so
and white.
Not
Also black and white.
Oh yeah. I mean, every year somebody, whether it's Fincher or Quaron or Payne, like every year somebody puts out a black and white movie. It's
since the artist won an Academy Award, right?
Right. Well, and Schindler's List before that.
Sure.
No, I mean, every year, I mean, maybe it is just the last few, but like, it seems like every year we get one. But yeah, that might just be since since the artist, yeah. Huh. I don't know. I mean, I'm amazed. We didn't plan for the movie to be in black and white.
Sure.
And I'm very happy that it is. But part of that is like, I will probably never get to make another one. So I'm really happy that I got to make one.
Aren't you working on something now?
I mean, black and white. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm working on a few other movies right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but
anything you want to share?
I'm pretty much always down to talk about the stuff. The only thing I run into is like, I really have no idea what's next. There's a script. I mentioned it before. There's Nothing Outside. McLeod and I both love it. We spent a year trying to make it. We just couldn't raise quite enough money. So that's there, and there's interest, but it's also kind of a forbidding script. Like I said, it's like if Samuel Beckett, wrote a horror movie. Like there's not a lot of those. So trying to like get people to see the commercial element of it, because no one wants to make a movie that nobody's going to want to see. So, but then beyond that, we're also working on this time travel road movie that is a really good script. And we've got a few companies just waiting on the next draft, because when I wrote the first draft, I forgot to put a second act in it. So had to fix that. But yeah, I mean, there's a few things, and hopefully one of them will see the light of day at least. But now that's just my job now, is to get them into that place where they can get out and, birth the next movie baby, as McLeod says.
Do you see yourself always writing and directing, or do you see yourself stepping away from one of those roles?
I could step away. I love both of them. I don't think I always need to direct my own stuff, and I think I would probably have an easier time directing somebody else's stuff than writing for someone else. But I won't say that I won't do that, because I don't know, rent needs to be paid. And I do love the problem. Sorry, I love the problem solving element of writing, of taking a few different disparate ideas, different agendas, different messages, and like making them cohesive and clear and a pleasant experience. That's a lot of fun.
And we have a mutual friend. We have the mutual friend of Clay McLeod Chapman. And
Yes.
I don't know. Why don't you two partner up on Whisper Down the Lane, the movie?
Yeah, Clay. I actually did when I finished reading the remaking, I texted him just like, "Hey, is anybody looking to make this?" Because like I finished. I was just like, "This is a movie." Like, oh my god, I know exactly how to make this. No, I would love to work with Clay. Clay's amazing. Did he tell you how we met?
No.
No. Okay. So I came to know about Clay through our mutual friend Abe Goldfarb, and Clay was doing his pumpkin pie stories, but he was doing the one-on-ones where, you know, it's one ticket, it's a 20-minute story. He tells it to you, like that was it. And I wanted to do that, but I also knew that like I'm going to be so in my head that first story that let me get a few. So I ended up buying 4. So we spent an hour and 20 minutes together, and he just told me 4 stories. And by the end of it, it was like, I think we're just friends now. So that's how we got to know each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Clay's a cool guy. I'm gonna have to have both of you on simultaneously sometime, I think.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll work on that. I'm going to invite everybody to take a survey right now that Juan is going to be dropping into the various chat rooms. I'm going to ask Adam to hang out with me for a second. And I'm also going to invite everybody to stay with us. If you're not on Twitch right now, you might consider transferring to Twitch because you'll get to watch Adam's movie, A Ghost Waits, which will be screened there. Again, thank you very much, Arrow, for your help with that. And thank you, Adam, for hooking us up with Arrow.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
And I also want to remind everybody to tune in tomorrow night for Farshid Kazemi, some vampire talk, and to remind you to stay spooky.
Thank you, guys.
That was fun. I hope you had fun.
I did. It was a blast. Thank you. I really, and like, I so had no idea what question was coming. Like you said, I've done a lot of these things, and it's generally like, okay, this is where we're going to talk about black and white. This is where we're going to talk about budget. This is where we're going to talk about this. But like, I was just like, I have no idea what's coming next. Let's do this. It was great. Thank you.
I try. I sometimes succeed. I've done a lot of interviews in the last year, though.
Yeah. No,
mostly with authors.
I'm happy. You know, if you ever want to have me back, I'm happy to.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. I think it'd be fun to have you and Clay and talk about things. A few things.
So everyone's switching over now to watch the movie? We're not
hopefully
anymore?
So. Okay. I want you to hang out. So what we do is we take a selfie.
Okay.
Guest.
Can I take 1 minute? I just really need to go to the bathroom. It's why.
Yeah, you go to the restroom.
Okay, I'll be right back.
No worries. I'll be right here.